Okay, let's talk about the season finale of the Haves and Have-Nots. The show will be back in January, so we got a few months before we can get our haves and the have-nots fixed on. So let's get right into it. I'll get my notes up here so I can keep everything coherent, talk about this in a straight line. Okay, so at Candace's house, her and Jeffrey talk a little bit. It's just a little conversation. Um, she talks about how she can't believe how his mother treats him because he talks about how she moved Melissa into his apartment and all of that stuff. And she says she doesn't care how her son, what her son grows up to be, whatever. She just loves him so, and she would never treat her son like Veronica treats Jeffrey. So there's a knock at the door, and Candace gets a bit freaked out because Quincy is out there, and but it's Benny and Hannah. And as you can imagine, Benny and Hannah want some answers, particularly Hannah. So Hannah, right out the gate, accuses Candace of burning down her house. I'm like, Hannah, come on. Candace would not do that. Benny already had said this was Quincy's work, and then so Hannah, she just says, "Oh, it doesn't matter. She's the one that brought. She may as well burn it down because she brought that devil into our lives and left him there." And Hannah just is doing too much here. I'm usually on Hannah's side, but Hannah was doing too much this episode. So Candace is like, "I can't believe you think I would burn down your house." So Hannah keeps pressing for the truth. Benny is pressing for it too. She tries to stick to the story about the job, but Benny says, "I went over there, that office. The people don't know nothing about you, so just stop it. We don't lie to each other. We're better than that. You don't have to lie to me." Okay, so Candace still doesn't tell where she got the money from. She just says, "Okay, I lied about the job." She practically admits to lying about the job. So she says, "I did it. I lied so you would take the house and the tow yard." Hannah Hannah is like still being just extra, so much doing so much extra about this, being hyper moral on her high horse, all of that. And Candace says, "I wanted you to have the car, the first car, because you remember in the last season that girl Erica just said, well, take this car. I don't want to have it. My ex gave it to me. She gave the car to Benny for $500. So you remember that from last season. So Candace set that up so that Hannah would have a car. Because she saw Hannah trying to catch the bus in the rain, and Candace is on the verge of tears saying this. So Candace does care about her mother. That much is clear from the way she acted when she was talking about her mother catching the bus in the rain. So she cares a lot about her mother. Uh, Candace does not completely come up with the truth. She just says, "Oh, I came into $7 million," and Hannah's like, "Nobody comes into $7 million. What the hell did you do for that money?" And Candace doesn't. She just says, "I'll show you that the house and the tow yard is legit." So she goes upstairs to get the deed. Um, so in between that, Wyatt calls Jeffrey and he wants some details about the car. Well, where is it? How did you find out? Just basic questions. So Jeffrey says, "You know what? I'll just pick you up and we'll go check out the car." And so back to Candace and Benny and Hannah. So Candace brings the deed down, and Hannah's all, "Y'all aren't gonna send me to an early grave. I ain't gonna let y'all kill me." And I'm like, okay, bring it down, tone it down. Candace shows the deeds to Benny, and he seems to accept that it's all legit, that it's paid for. She gets ready to show her bank account. She pulls it up on the screen. She doesn't look at it. She just lets Benny see it, and she says, I got over $4 million in there. Benny says, is this some kind of joke? This says zero balance. Candace looks at the laptop and she's like, what? She can't figure out what has happened. So they go on, and Hannah and Benny, they leave, and right as they're leaving, we see Quincy pull up, and he's waiting outside Candace's house. So Candace has a little bit of a conversation with Jeffrey. She says, this was Oscar that took my money. I've been trying to call him. He's not answering. I'm going to get my money back. And when she finally does get... wait, let me make sure I'm going in order here. Pardon me for a second while I check my notes. Okay, so when she finally does get a hold of Oscar on the phone, he's all like, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't take your money. Blah, blah, blah. And all of that. So, and he agrees to come back to Savannah. So that's that with that. So Hannah and Benny, they get back to his house, and he's saying, well, Mama, you know what? Let's just take a breath. Let's go inside and figure all this out. And Hannah's all, I'd rather have peace of mind living in a dog house than living in a house, and I don't know how and where the money came from. And I'm like, Hannah, you need to stop this. You got nowhere to go. You don't have any prospects of where to go. You didn't even want to take some help from Catherine to get yourself together, and that's your employer. And you know that would be legit to accept some help from your employer and your friend, but you don't even want to take any money from her or any help from her, and you know they're tight. So she helped her through the cancer, and Catherine through the cancer and all of that, and they're tight, and yet she doesn't want to take any money from her or any assistance or even a place to stay from her. So Hannah's got pride and being on a high horse, all rolled up into one big annoying package. And I like Hannah, so, but she's annoying me so far. So let's get back in. Where are we? Okay, so we're with Veronica and David now. Veronica's at the office, but before she goes in to see David, Benny calls her, and he wants some legal advice about the deed and all of that. And so she agrees to meet him. He says, well, I'm on my way there now. Just meet me there whenever. She agrees to do that, and then she goes in to meet David. Maggie's in there, and so of course she's got to throw some shade at Maggie. She tells her, get out. Maggie just leaves. Really is no need for any sort of confrontation there. It's just, Maggie said all she needed to say last week to Veronica. She set Veronica straight. So Veronica tells David, I think you should run for governor. I think you should seize the opportunity. And David's like, you're over here to talk about this, me running for governor, and we haven't even talked about what you tried to do to me. You tried to burn me up. You tried to kill me. And Veronica's like all nonchalant, like it's no big deal. She's like, I wasn't going to let you die. I just wanted you to burn a little bit. And like, I'm like, Veronica, this is not a joke. You set your house on fire with David asleep in the bed, and you're laughing like it was no big deal. And then he brings up Jeffrey and, you know, Melissa living in his apartment and pregnant and all of that. And we don't know where Veronica's going to go as far as that. She said, well, can't we just deal with one issue at a time? So we'll see what happens next season with that. So she says that David should run. She's like, everything's back to normal now, and she takes his hand and all that, and you know, that's all that was that with them. So we get back to Candace, and Oscar arrives at her house. At first he lies and says, well, I didn't take your money, I don't know what you're talking about, blah 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 blah. And then he says, you know, that was never your money to begin with. And yeah, I took it back. I took it because you extorted it, so I got it back. Candace is so mad, and it just sets her off that he says the only thing I didn't lie about was the sex. You were really good. Candace goes to stab him because she had pulled a knife out the door, out the drawer when before he came in the door. So she gets to fighting with Oscar. Here comes Quincy. He gets Oscar off of her. Oscar bolts out the door, and then Quincy starts doing a number on Candace, just punching her and choking her, everything. And so on from there, we see poor Hannah, and I say that kind of grudgingly because Hannah got on my nerves in this episode with her moralizing and being on a high horse. So Hannah, she's sitting up at the rubble of her house, looking around, and I'm like, I know God has power. God is all powerful. He can make things happen. But Hannah, he's not gonna resurrect this house from the ashes. That just not gonna happen. You didn't have no insurance, so that house is gone. So you need to stop. You need to give up that ghost and move on. And just as she's sitting there, the CPS calls, and the social worker is like, "Hey, I got good news for you. Uh, you're getting custody." And so Hannah, right after, chewing Candace and Benny out about lying, she just says, okay, hangs up the phone. No, no mention of her house being in ruins. And to make it worse, she was sitting right there in the ruins of her house and didn't tell CPS the truth. Okay, so I'm going to talk more about that shortly. So, over at the tow yard, Wyatt and Jeffrey have arrived. And I like Wyatt and Jeffrey in this scene. That was just a really, I like them in this scene. They actually seem like friends for once, sort of like a little bit of a tag team. For once, they actually seem like they are friends, and you know, not not a whole lot of other stuff going on. They just seem like friends, and I like that their friendship sort of came through here, and that they were working together and on the same side for once to get something done. So they've pulled up, and Wyatt is saying, well, what about the car? How are we going to get it? Jeffrey says maybe we can buy it for scrap, and Wyatt doesn't really want to do that. I guess he doesn't trust that that will work out well. So, but as they're trying to figure that out, they see Veronica pull up. Jeffrey's like, that's my mom. And Wyatt's thinking, what's she doing here? And Jeffrey's like, I don't know. So Veronica goes inside, and Benny says, you mind looking at this? She's like, sure. She tells him, well, yeah, you can check these deeds at the county clerk. And right after that, she goes into this speech about, it's a you're dumped speech. I've made a lot of mistakes, and you were one of them, and I'm sorry, but this is over. We can't do this anymore. Benny's like, it can be over because we never started anything. And so Benny, he clearly he was not thinking like, oh, this is sort of like we're not really even having an affair. We're just messing around. And so Benny immediately turns into a hoe. So I'm thinking that this must run on Hannah's side of the family somewhere, just being a hoe and messing with married people, all that stuff. Because we know that Benny's father was married when Hannah was having an affair with him and had Benny, and we know that Candace has no qualms about sleeping with someone who is married. So Benny just turns into a hoe. He's like, kiss me, and Veronica's like, oh, like, no, and he's saying, come on, I've had a hard day. And so he starts kissing her, and she's trying to resist, but she's like, okay, just whatever. She just is like She lets it go like, oh, I'm not going to even try. I want this to happen. So, as they're getting it in, and Wyatt made me laugh because as they're getting it in, Wyatt and Jeffrey are outside the window peeking in, and Wyatt's got his camera phone up like this. Way to go, Veronica. And Jeffrey's all like, stop it. And Jeffrey's all like, and Wyatt's all like, I'll text it to you. All the while he's still filming, and he's like, maybe your dad will want to see too. And Wyatt just like, he's like looking at Veronica and Benny. He's like, okay, of course Wyatt's excited about this because he's got some other dirt on Veronica. And so Veronica, she just is like, doesn't really care. It's like, okay, I'm trying to get my marriage back on track, but I'm still going to do this. I'm not going to even pretend like I don't want to be up in this tow yard with Benjamin, as she likes to call him. So Benny goes down, and that's all I'll say. I'm not going to detail it. I'll just say, you know what going down means. So I'm not going to dwell on it. So, okay, so so at the hospital, Hannah. So CPS hands over Q to her. And Hannah says, baby, we're going home. But that's a lie because she's got no home to go to. And like I said, despite chewing Benny and Candace out about telling the truth, Hannah just lied to this woman. She didn't tell her my house burned down to the ground. She had none of this to say, and she takes that boy out of there and takes him to a motel. Now, granted, CPS says we're going to do a site visit, so next season that's going to be a sticky situation for Hannah since a motel is not an acceptable place to bring up a child. Now, assuming that Candace really did get to pay for those houses outright and they're all bought and paid for, Hannah may have to move in with Benny at his place next season. So we'll see what happens. So back at the campaign office, Oscar comes in. We find out that his real name is Brandon, that he was doing asset recovery for David. And I said all along that he was probably working for David because because David said last season that he would neutralize Candace, and that he did, and Oscar or Brandon was the way that he did it. And Oscar or Brandon says, well, I got the money back, minus expenses and my 30%, and you know, she liked to be wined and dined, and I had to use private jets and all that, so I had to incorporate expenses in. So that was it for that. David goes to tell Jim, well, I got your money back. I got your money back, and here it is, and all of that. All whole time, David's just looking at Jim like, or I should say, Jim's just looking at David like, he's looking at David like he hates him, and at this point, Jim wasn't even worried about that money. He just looks at David and he just looks at David like, go on, shoot. So David leaves the office and Jim calls his hitman. He says, I want it done now. And we know what now means. So, let's see. Okay, Jim gets up there to give his dropping out speech. Sounds like he's going to do it. Then he goes off script. Maggie says, I did not write this. I didn't write this. He actually sounded pretty good when he did this. He says, yes, I had an affair during some rough times with my wife and our marriage. And I did not, I was wrong for doing that. And I did not stand by the woman I had an affair with or our kids. And Celine's at home looking all like, oh my gosh, I mean, she's like, she has this sort of this teary looking smile, like uh, Jim still gives a care about her somewhat, and I'm like, just don't be thirsty, Celine. It ain't that serious. He's just saying what he needs to say so that he can still run for governor. All the while, Jim is giving his speech, talking about, oh, we did this, we've given millions to charity overseas, we went to Haiti, gave to Haiti, all this stuff, and all the while he's saying this, we're seeing the hits being carried out. We see the guard at the prison that was in on Wyatt getting raped. We see him get his throat cut. We see the prisoner that raped Wyatt. We see him just getting stabbed by all these guys, just getting stabbed, stabbed, stabbed. Wow, the violence in this episode was just, it was crazy violent at the end. And so then we see Professor Cannon. We see him. He's coming out to his car in the parking lot at the college. There's this lady standing there. She just, bam, puts a whole bunch of bullets in him. He's dead. Then we see the hitman in Veronica's house. Now, Veronica better be glad that what happened at the end happened, because Jim had the hitman in her house ready to kill her. But she's standing behind him while he's giving his speech. And David had made up his mind to run for governor, but Jim's like, I ain't going nowhere. I'm running for governor. I got something to offer. Yeah, I'm not a perfect man, but I got something to offer. And you know what? That was so unrealistic, because no politician is going to say, yeah, I make mistakes, but I got something to offer. I'm a good person. No politician owns up to their mistakes. They'd rather drop out the race than own up to their mistakes and try to still make their career happen. So that was a bit unrealistic. I liked the scene, and it's unfortunate that politics is really not like that, where more politicians own up to the wrong that they do, but that's a whole other subject. So, after Jim's speech and that bloody massacre, we see the DA come in. And she's just like so bad. She just rolls up in there, just bad as heck. Before that, we saw where the cops had gone to the tow yard and they're asking Benny about the car, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but they're asking Benny about the car. And so I guess that he let them have it, obviously, because the DA rolls up in there with her crew and she's like, arrest them all. Veronica's cocking off some money. Well, I'll have your job for this. You ain't got no evidence. And she said, the DA said, yes, I do. Wyatt Cryer and your son got him. I gave them immunity, and they're going to testify against you. Obstruction of justice, and a whole host of other charges. Arrest them, all of them. Catherine, Jim, David, Veronica, all put in handcuffs and led out of there. So I don't think Jim's going to wriggle his way out of this one, and David's little gubernatorial aspirations have gone poof, too. And so they get arrested. Final scene is at Candace's house. Candace is still being brutally attacked by Quincy. Jeffrey pulls up. He walks in the house. He tries to get Quincy off of Candace. He hits him with a vase, neutralizes him for a second. That does not do much good, and so he goes after Jeffrey. Candace gets a knife and stabs him. That neutralizes him again a little bit. Quincy is crazy, though. He keeps trying to get at Candace. He keeps trying to kill her. So Jeffrey picks up the knife. He just starts stabbing. There was blood everywhere. This was when they said it was going to be a bloody finale. They weren't kidding. There was just like blood everywhere. That's how it goes off. Quincy is dead. Jeffrey has killed him, and that's how it ends. So I thought it was a good finale. I think this was the best finale that the haves and the have-nots have had before. The other ones were okay, that I think there could have been a better sort of cliffhanger to them. It was a lot too the other ones were a little bit predictable. You kind of knew what was going to happen. This one, I didn't really expect that to go down like it did, but it was real good. It was real good. So if you have not watched the episode yet, check it out when you get a chance when it comes on again. So that's the haves and the have-nots review. I really thank you for watching this season. Uh, I believe this was my first full season of doing reviews. It's been great doing the reviews. It's been great watching the show. We're gonna be back with the show in January. Hopefully, I will have these reviews a little bit upgraded. I'll have a few months to pick out some more, to think of some more ideas of how to improve the production on this review. In the meantime, I think I'm gonna take up reviewing If Loving You Is Wrong. So that'll be a good testing place for me to improve my reviews. So thank you very much for watching this review. This one has run way over what I usually do, but thank you so much. I appreciate you viewing and you liking these videos. So give it the thumbs up, and I will see you next time. Thanks.